How would you take a good study? What kind of studies are there? Is there a bias? Is it a valid study? And how do you know? So statisticians, companies all the time want to do surveys of their products, right? They want to know if their product is working the way it's supposed to. They want to know if their customer service is working the way it's supposed to. They want to know what people like and what people don't like. So they have to do a survey. They have to do some sort of study. Pharmaceutical companies want to know if their drug's working, so they do a study. So what kind of study do they perform? So that's what we're talking about today. So a population is all of the members of a set. So if I wanted to do a study about Westlake students, the population would be everybody that attends Westlake. A sample is just part of the population. So if I grabbed every 5th person that walked through the door and put them in one group, that would be a sample of my population. If you determine a sample carefully, the statistics for the sample can be used to make general conclusions. And the key word here is if you determine a sample carefully. For example, if I want to know if people like McDonald's, I'm not going to go to the McDonald's line and ask them, right? Because the people that work at McDonald's, or not work, people that go to McDonald's probably like McDonald's, right? That's not going to be a very good sample. It's going to be a very biased sample because it doesn't represent everybody. If I want to know if somebody likes McDonald's, I'm going to just like randomly pull anybody and ask them about whatever. Samples vary in how well they reflect a population. A sample has a bias when part of the population is either overrepresented or underrepresented. So in my McDonald's example, if I went and asked the people in the drive-thru at McDonald's if they liked McDonald's, that would be I'm overrepresenting a certain group, a certain type of people. So there's 4 different kinds of sampling that you could get. There's a convenient sample that happens when you just grab the people that are closest to you. Select any members of the population who are conveniently and readily available. So convenience. There's a self-selected sample. These are the people, you know, when you get your receipt and like call in and you can get a free taco or whatever. That's a self-selected. I'm choosing to do the sample. I'm choosing to do the study. Only members of the population who volunteer. Systematic sample. That's how we order the population in some way, and then we select it in regular intervals. So if I stand at the door and grab every 5th person, that's going to be a systematic sample. There's a system to it. And then a random sample. Random sampling is the best way to get a really good view of what the population thinks if you just randomly grab people. Any person's equally likely to be chosen. Systematic sample is not bad, but that means if person number 1 walking through the door, that means 2, 3, 4, 5 don't have a chance at it, right? A random sample would be 1 could be pulled and 2 could be pulled, and then I may not pull another one until I get to 34. So any person has a same chance of being chosen. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and we have to decide which one of those 4 it is. A newspaper wants to find out what % of the city population favors a property tax increase to raise money for a local park. What is the sampling method used for each situation? And does it have a bias? So, part A, a newspaper article on the tax increase invites readers to express their opinions on the newspaper website. That's self-selected. And do you think that it has a bias? Do you think a certain group of people are probably overly represented? Maybe a little bit, because this is only going to be dealing with the people that read the newspaper, right? I have an opinion on if I should have my taxes raised. I don't read the newspaper. So I would say there's a bias. Reason being It's only targeting the newspaper readers. Part B, a reporter interviews people leaving the city's largest park. Yeah, that's going to have a bias because clearly the people leaving a park are going to like parks, right?
What if they're just leaving?
Still a bias. I don't know. Yeah, we're only looking at park goers. But what kind of sampling is that? It's a convenience, right? I'm going to go to the park and I'm going to pick the people who are there. That's convenient. A survey service calls every 50th listing from the local phone book.
Systematic.
That's systematic. Yeah. Is there a bias in that one? Clearly this book was written when we used phone books. I would say there's no bias on that one because person number 1 and person number 51, like, each of them have an equally likely opinion on whether they do or they don't. I would say no, there's no bias. We're getting kind of a true, like, I have no idea. Like, this is kind of targeting a certain kind of person, right? This person, I don't know. This person clearly likes parks because they're going to them. They probably are going to be more willing to give money towards a park. This person, yeah, is on the internet, right? Not going to a park. Okay, next one. Again, same question. A supermarket wants to find the percent of shoppers who use coupons. A manager interviews every shopper entering the greeting card aisle. That'd be a convenience. And this one may not have a large bias, but I would say there's a small bias because
They chose that store.
yeah, they chose that store. They are a certain kind of person. You're only targeting the people that are buying cards. I mean, it's probably not a large bias. I'm not targeting the mom sitting at the line, like, taking 45 minutes with all of her coupons, right? Like, that's not my audience. But it is still kind of one sort of person. So I would say yes, there's a small bias. But it is targeting one kind of shopper. Part B, a maintenance crew wants to estimate how many of 3,000 air filters in a 30-store office building need replacing. The crew examines 5 filters chosen at random on each floor of the building. I would say it's probably systematic, simply because it's probably systematic and random. Systematic because, yeah, certainly it's more systematic. Simply because once they hit their 5th person on the floor, they're moving on, right? The 6th person has no chance of getting it. Therefore, it can't be fully random, right? Therefore, I would say it's probably not random. Except for, on each floor, everyone, yeah, I'm going to go with systematic simply because, yes, they're being chosen at random, but once they hit their fifth person, they're done, they're moving to floor 2. Yes. So there's still a system to it.
It's random because you're not asking everybody on that floor.
True, but it's...
I mean, yes, you're only interviewing so many
Mhm.
on each floor, but it's at random.
But we're at random, we're choosing those?
Is there only choosing 5 or 3,000 on that first floor? That is just...
Well, the 5 and the 100.
So
Okay, so should we say it's like 80% systematic and 20% random?
Or would you say it's both?
kill with
Can we
fire
just
before my
say
eggs.
systematic and
Ben,
random?
would you
Yeah.
ever have a purely random sample ever? if this counts as systematic.
To be or not to be?
For this one, so how would we make this truly random? So there's 3,000 people, or 3,000 air filters. We will be choosing 150 of them. So to make it truly random, what you would have to do is so total, we're doing 150. It's okay to have a random sample and still have a cap on how many people you're going to be asking. Because we want a sample, we don't want the whole thing, right? To make it truly random, you would have to get some sort of random number, some random generator, and get 150 and then do those 150. And it wouldn't matter what floor they're coming from, we're just choosing the 150.
Well, what if they like randomly chose it and the whole 29th air filters for that, but they didn't choose anything on the 29th?
C'est la vie, right? Like it's, yeah.
Let's just cross it out.
I think we should just bust them for safety violations.
Okay, moving on. Is there a bias here?
No.
No bias.
Well, how does it stand to be a bias just because that is
Any what?
adding objects? If they're just choosing by filters,
Yeah.
filters don't have a bias.
Yeah.
I only want to be checked by this guy. Everybody else can get
Okay, part C. To survey the eating habits of community employees of a local television station, interview people visiting a food court.
It's convenient.
That's a convenience. And there's certainly a bias, right? Because if you're going to a food court, yeah, we're targeting a certain eating habit. Kind of like if I were going to ask the eating habits and I go to a Whole Food store, right? Their sample is going to be far different than my food court sample. Okay, so those are the different kinds of sampling methods that you could do. To get a really good idea of what the population thinks, random is going to be the best. Systematic will be the best after that. Systematic is a lot easier to do than random, like a true random sample. They were asking questions about something at the school. It's really funny to get all of the math teachers together. It's really obnoxious sometimes, but they were talking about something about the school and grades and deadlines, and the people they asked the questions to were like the football coaches and the baseball, like all of the sports people, and then like the media center or something, and like the math teacher's like, wait a minute, that's not a true random. So we started talking about like how can you, that's not a good sample because a certain group were represented and we were irritated, and anyway. We should fight them. Yeah. Except for it's all the sports people, and I'd probably lose. Yeah. True. Okay, so now we're going to talk about study methods. So 3 different kinds. You can do, so how do I gather my data? There's 3 different ways. Observational study is if you're just watching something happen and no one's affected by it, you're just observing. So this could be something like if psychologists want to do a study on kids' behavior and they put kids in a play group and you just watch them. The kids aren't affected, you're just observing and you're making decisions based on that. Okay? So they're not affected by the study if it's an observational study. A controlled experiment, you divide the sample into 2 groups. You give one, so say a lot of medicines do this. They give one the medicine, they give one the placebo, right? And then they see if the medicine actually works compared to the placebo, which wouldn't work. So a control group and then another one. The last one is a survey. So you just ask a bunch of questions to a set of people. So again, just like before, we're going to give you a bunch of different examples and you tell me what kind of study method they have. Part A researcher randomly chooses 2 groups from 10 volunteers. Over a period of 8 weeks, one group eats ice cream before going to sleep and the other one does not. Volunteers wear monitoring devices while sleeping and researchers record the dream activity. So this is a controlled experiment. because you're comparing the two different groups. One, something's going on, one, something different. Should the sample statistic be used to make general conclusions toward the population, and why? It's only like 10 people. There's not a large enough group to really make a good decision. How many people do you think would make a good... I'd say probably in the thousands. Like if you want to see if ice cream's going to affect your sleeping habits, you better be researching a lot of people, right? Before somebody's going to say no ice cream before bed, I want to know that at least 10,000 people were studied. Otherwise, I'm still eating my ice cream before bed. Okay?
Even if they do, I'm still eating ice cream before bed.
Yeah, well, forget sleep. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Mint chocolate chip. Yeah, I'm not going to write that down. But the number of participants are too small to really make a good generalization. Part B, students in a science class record the height of a bean plant as it grows. It's an observational. Doesn't affect anything. Okay, can we use that to make generalizations? Yeah, probably. A lot of different things, though, are going to affect this bean plant. What kind of soil they used, how much sun it got, how much water it got. So there's probably a lot of different variables to look into. But you probably can make a good generalization. Yeah, I would say yes, you could. Just know that it may be a better study if half the class uses one type of soil and the other half uses like soil with fertilizer or something. Like what are we comparing? If you're just comparing how tall the bean grows, yeah, it just depends on what you're looking for. I started to write my reason why and then I stopped. Yeah. Okay, last one. Student council members ask every 10th student in the lunch line if they like cafeteria food. You laugh. So is it, yep. Oh, hold on. What would this be? It'd be a survey. So we're asking people questions. Shh. Could you use this to draw a generalization? Well, is there a bias? There is, right? If you're standing in line for your school lunch, either mom makes you eat school lunch and you don't have a choice, right? Or you like school lunch. Even if you can't go out to eat or whatever, you still could bring peanut butter from home. Like if you're in the lunch line,
Just peanut butter.
the spoon. If you're in the lunch line, you probably like school lunch. So I would say, could you make a generalization on this one?
Yeah.
No, you may want to like,
Lunch, but I still eat it. I'm hungry.
yeah. But it's still probably not reliable. I would say it's not reliable. You're only targeting a certain group. What could you do different to see if people actually like school lunch? So maybe do the same thing every 10th person, but not in the lunch line, like as they walk through the front doors. School lunch has changed a lot since I was in high school. Yeah. Dang it. Okay, same question. More situations. A list of students is randomly generated from the school database. Information for every student is entered in the database, and each student has an equally likely chance of being selected. So what are we trying to do here? Identify the type of study method. So that's the first 4 questions, right? And whether the sample statistics could be used to make a general conclusion. So the students selected are asked how much time they spend on household chores each week. So it's a survey, and how is it generated?
Yeah.
Well, it's on your paper.
But still, it's but for your viewers.
Okay, what's going on? This is annoying.
It's all about the viewers.
Picky. There you go. All right. So what do you think? Yes. Yes.
There's your answer.
It's a survey.
There it is.
Is it? Hold on. Convenient, self-selected, systematic, or random? It's random, right? No bias, so could you make general conclusions?
Yes.
Yeah. Everything's very random about it. Equally likely chance, into a database, randomly selected. So yes, I would say you probably could make some generalizations from that. Okay, part B. A gardener tested new plant food by planting seeds from the same package in the same soil and location. Each plant is given the same amount of water. So whenever you're doing an experiment, you need to, you really need to control what variables you're testing. So if this gardener had different kinds of soil, different plant food, different amount of water, different sunlight, could you really tell what's going on? No, everything has to be the same except for one thing, and then you can make a generalization. So yeah, so this is a controlled experiment. So what are we looking at here? So what is he testing? He's testing the food versus no food, right? So could he probably make a generalization? Yeah, this is a very controlled study, like, yeah. I would say that, yeah, no bias. Pretty much. Feels good, right? See why I said we probably can get at least 1.5 days done? Okay, let's knock it off. Okay, part A. During the 2008 Olympic game, a U.S. swimmer won more medals than any other swimmer in history. What sampling method could you use to find the percent of students in your school who recognize that swimmer from a photograph? Okay, again. What sampling method could you use to find the percent of students in your school? So you have to decide this time. What could you do? A random survey? Yeah, you would just go ask people, right?
Yes.
How would you make it random? Making something truly random is hard, so how would you make it random? Okay, so that's systematic, right? So is it okay to do systematic though? Yeah, why not? Just because it's systematic doesn't mean that it's non-representational. Representational, is that the right word? I don't know. Thank you. I would say systematic is okay if we asked every 10th person, or if we went to somebody's English class, because everybody has English, right, until you graduate. It's a 4-year requirement. Everyone's English class, and then picked every 5th person. I'm not saying I wouldn't say that that's targeting a specific group, because everybody has English, right? If we went to everybody's math class, that would be different, because not everybody takes math in high school, all 4 years. So what's an example of a survey question that is likely to yield information that has no bias?
Do you know him?
Do you know this person? I don't know. Okay, moving on.
Who is this guy?
Yeah. Okay, part B. My next door neighbor, their dog is a what kind of dog?
A water dog.
His name's Phelps. Yeah. Phelps, like Michael Phelps. It's a water, I don't know.
They just like to be in the water, or?
Yeah, no, it's part of the breed. I just can't remember the full breed. Anyway. I don't know. I'll look it up. Give me a minute. Part B. What sampling method could you use to find a percent of residents in your neighborhood who recognize the governor of your state by name? So what could you use? Systematic seems the easiest, right?
You just go ask like 2 people from each household.
Yeah.
And then like every other number.
Right. Okay, so I would say systematic again is probably easiest. How would you do it? Go ask the people at the park? Door to door would be better, right? Do you know who this is? Again? So what would your question be? So do you know who this is? Might be different. What do we want to know? We want to know if they know his name, right? So you could say, what is this man's name and what does he do? Or woman, depending on the year. Last one. What sampling method could you use to find the % of adults in your community who support building more nuclear power plants? Could you even do a survey where they choose a self-selected sample? Just leave a flyer on everybody's door, ask them to mail it back in, or? Oh, well, probably not. Do it on Facebook?
They will mail it if it's correct.
Probably.
But then like, people who don't care are gonna be like, this is waste my time, and then people who do care are gonna just jump.
Yeah, so it would be biased again, yeah. Which is why people or companies like when things are biased, right? Like, because the public generally doesn't think about that the only people sending back their survey are the people that want to spend money on this. 98% of the population say they want a power plant. The companies use that to their advantage, right? Yeah. Okay, that's everything. Done and done.